Welcome to this video worship service from the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of all people and gather together in a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are in this present moment, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome in this community. We invite everyone, especially those who are coming to us for the first time through these video services, to connect with us on our Facebook page and in our virtual fellowship hall. Or you can email me with any questions you may have about Unitarian Universalism and our faith community at revjohn@uulosalamos.org. The links for all of these means to connect are provided in the service notes below this video. Live, in-person worship will resume very soon. Please visit our website to keep up to date on our return to the sanctuary. And now, take a moment to breathe deep and be present to the here and now as we begin this week's service. From beyond the playful summer clouds, beyond the earth's thin blue line, from beyond the bright moon and meteor showers, we hear the call to look and listen carefully, to turn away from the world that buys and sells happiness, to fully experience the luring whisper of your heart's truth. Why not today? Why not now? We are here and together at home in this evolving place, home in this ever-changing breath and body, home in this dewy morning, even as it reaches toward a hot high noon. We hear the call from far beyond and deep within, and we do not hear it alone. Come, let us worship together.
Please join us in our affirmation.
Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all.
Friends, as I announced during last week's service, our minister emeritus, our dear friend and my colleague, the Reverend Dr. Dale Arning, died on Wednesday, November 3rd in the evening after a brief time in home hospice. The cause was complications from Parkinson's disease. On January 2nd in the new year, we will be holding a special tribute service for Dale, reprising one of his most beloved sermons for you during Sunday worship. And then soon after that, a memorial service in celebration of Dale's life will be held here in the church. That will be a live event and will also be streamed out to those who cannot attend as well. And we'll have more information on that for you soon. But now, as is our tradition, I light our candle of life in memory of Dale. Let us be together in a moment of silence. Let us be together now in a moment of prayer and reflection. Spirit of life and love, in the silence, in the stillness, we hear the call of our own heart, its tender dreams, its sorrows and triumphs. In the silence, in the stillness, we hear whispers of days gone by, of dreams still becoming the promise of the future. We celebrate together our individual journeys and dreams and our collective ones, knowing the journey is so much richer with others to share in it. In the name of all that is holy, we pray. Amen.
Hey guys! So today's Time for All Ages is about deep listening. And I have homework for you all as well, so listen up. So many of us are always super busy. We have school, then sports, then music, then practice our skateboard. Or we have a show we want to watch. Then we need to remember to eat, then do our homework, then be nice to our family members, take a bath or a shower, and then wake up, eat our breakfast, and do it all over again. Sheesh, I'm tired just thinking about all that. Ugh. So how do we practice deep listening in the middle of all our busyness? Well, let's start by pausing and letting ourselves calm down a bit. Let's all take a deep breath in and out and pause. That feels good, right? Well, that's something I like to do, is take those deep breaths and pause. And something else I like to do to start my deep listening is to listen to my heart. Literally. Yep. I can take my fingers and I can find my pulse and listen to my heartbeat. So you guys can take your fingers and try this with me, okay? I find it. Boom, 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 boom. Ooh, I found it. You can find it in your wrist too. Yeah, find your heartbeat. And that calms me down a little bit, right? Listening to my heart. And listening to my heart and what I feel too inside is like using my ears to listen, right? I can listen and look for what gives me joy. I can listen to others to find out what gives them joy. This makes me think of a fun song that I changed a few of the lyrics to fit our theme. You might recognize it. Listen to your heart when it's calling to you. Listen to your heart. There's nothing else you can do. I don't know where I'm going, and I don't know why. Listen to your heart for connections to life. So one thing that allows me to listen deeper is being outside in nature. To be in nature, you definitely have to do some deep listening. I feel more connected to the world around me when I listen in nature. Listen to that wind and the leaves, right? It's like humans and nature are connected or something. Nature and humans are made of the same stuff, stardust. So listening to nature is similar to listening to my heart. I follow what gives me joy. I follow my bliss. What gives you joy and bliss? Can you do some deep listening and follow that joy and bliss and share it with others? Maybe it's listening in nature. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's being on your skateboard or on your roller skates. So share that bliss and joy with others. I also like to take photos in nature and share them with people on my Instagram. I know that sharing my joy and bliss can bring joy to others and connect me to others as well. I can then listen to what brings them joy and bliss. This deep listening, this heart listening connects all of us. And that's what deep listening is about, connecting us to each other. So this week, your homework. And yes, remember, I said I was going to give you homework. Your homework this week is to do some deep listening in nature and take photos of things in nature that give you joy. Share those photos. You can share those photos then on our UCLA Virtual Fellowship Hall Facebook group. And you can get your parents to help you, give you their phone to take photos, or and then help you post them on our Facebook group. And you can use the hashtag deep listening when you post those photos, all right? So that is your homework, is to do some deep listening in nature and post your joy-filled photos with us so we can connect through our photos of joy in nature. So this way we can connect with each other through our deep listening practice. And if you don't have Facebook, you can also email your photos and I can help post them on our Facebook group. So we'll see you next time, and practice your deep listening.
Do you see what's going on here? The doors to the sanctuary are wide open, and you see rows of chairs here are starting to pop up. And how long has it been since we've seen something like this? It's been a while, and yes, what this means is we are getting ready to come back to live and in-person worship here at the Unitarian Church of Los Alamos. Early last week, church leadership voted to move to live worship as soon as possible. We are aiming to have our first Sunday service at some point in early December, and we'll let you know more about that date the more we prepare. And there's a lot to do before we get to that point. We are working hard to get ready to do this. And meanwhile, we have some things to ask of you and inform you. As we return to live and in-person worship, we will be expecting all of our members and friends and visitors to be masked while they are in the building, obviously following the state guidelines. And also, we expect that everyone who is eligible for the vaccine from ages 5 and up be vaccinated while they are here in the building. And if you have questions about that, you can contact me in the church office. Now, I should let you know that seating is going to still be limited, although not as limited as it was when we tried this summer. There will still be reservations necessary for seats, and we'll know more about how many seats will be available in the coming weeks. Live services will also be available still on video for those of you who cannot be here present with us in the sanctuary. Now, in the coming weeks, there will be more and more information coming out about exactly what we are doing and what is going to be happening. We'll have some more information on how we are going to be managing our vaccine expectations with you all. We'll have information about what sort of help we are going to need in getting ready and in being able to welcome people on Sunday mornings and asking you to come in and give us a hand. And we'll have more information soon about what we're doing with religious education, because that will be starting up at the same time too, and how we're handling coffee hour and other events that might be coming up. But in the meantime, just know we are weeks away from starting live in-person worship here in our sanctuary, and I can't wait. I am so excited to be able to see your faces again, even if there's a mask on them, to look in your eyes, to have that direct contact as we worship together. It's been a long time, and I need it, and I know you need it, and I'm looking forward to seeing you all right here very, very soon.
I wonder if any of you watching out here today remember your first day of school. Or let me make this easier on all of us. Can you remember a first day of school, be it the first day of kindergarten or your first day of college? Do you remember what that felt like? Your first day in a new place, your first day on a new job. All of the anxiety that comes along with it and all of the excitement. The first day jitters. That is absolutely what I was feeling last week as I came back to be with all of you. I was having the first day jitters again. And so I did things to help myself cope. I laid my outfit for the day out the night before, so I knew exactly what I'd be wearing. And I made sure I had all of my lunch plans settled, so I knew where I would be eating, controlling all the things that I could control in the moment, because there were all these other worries that I couldn't quite get a grasp on floating around in my head. What if nobody remembers me? What if I don't remember how any of this works? What if I forget how to preach? Or worse, what if I remember how to preach, but I don't have anything to say at all? What if I forget how to use all of the technology we've had to bring into the equation these last few years to make worship happen remotely? And friends, I'm going to be honest, I forgot some of those things last week. So sometimes the worries are real. But sometimes they're just that. They're just worries. They're a hurdle to jump over as you step back in. Because eventually, with a little bit of kindness and a little bit of grace for myself, I'm able to see past the anxiety and come back into the relationships and the work. And now today, with the happy news we announced earlier about soon coming back together to live people on the chancel and live people out here in the congregation, we're feeling some joy and some excitement, I know. But maybe in a few minutes, maybe sometime after you watch this service, maybe in a few days, maybe in the days approaching when we actually come back to be together, I'm pretty sure, I'm fairly confident in saying that some of those first day jitters are going to creep in. Some anxieties are going to arise. What if the seat layout looks different and I don't know where to be anymore? What if the people I enjoy hanging out with in coffee hour don't want to hang out with me anymore? What if I forgot the words to the affirmation or the closing song? How embarrassing would that be? What if everything just feels different? And the truth is, many things may end up feeling different. But eventually, any one of us with just the slightest capacity, even, for kindness and a sense of grace to oneself and to others, anyone who can pause in the moment and have that kindness and grace, can find the quiet to listen to our own hearts and hear the truths that are being obscured amidst all our worry. Because if we can listen to the truth of who we are and who we are as a part of this church, we know what changes now and then about life in a congregation and what doesn't change. The rhythms of weekly worship, even though the form might adjust from time to time, are pretty reliable. The cycles and patterns of a liturgical year are pretty reliable. We can rely on Thanksgiving falling on the fourth Thursday in November and a Sunday before that having some sort of Thanksgiving service. And we can rely on Christmas Eve always being on the 24th of December and Martin Luther King Jr. Day being that weekend in January. And Easter we can rely on a little less, but it still has a pretty limited range of where it can fall throughout the year. So sometime in the spring, we know that the life cycle over the long arc stays the same, and we can count on those rhythms and those patterns. And once we grow in comfort with that, we find that the connections we thought might be weakened or broken are still right there. We fall back into the patterns with our friends and our loved ones, and pretty soon we realize that given all our anxieties, we're all in the same boat with them. We're all sharing the same small fears and big fears and anxieties and excitement. And because we know we're all in the same boat, we can find even more strength to forgive ourselves when we make the small mistakes and trust that others will forgive us because we're all fumbling through it in the same way right now. And as we settle in to the patterns we recognize and the connections that strengthen us and the sense of grace that we can give one another, maybe the old patterns and the rhythms and other connections, ones we have forgotten about, start to reemerge as we live in it more. Or maybe even new and surprising and joyous rhythms and patterns start to emerge that we never expected and make us better. We'll get over these first day jitters together. I know we will. But, and this is not to frighten anybody or put anybody off, it's just to name a reality and something I can see coming. Once we've fallen into the small rhythms and gotten over those opening jitters, sometime soon a larger anxiety is going to creep in for all of us. We're going to realize that despite the familiar patterns and despite the exciting new ones that are emerging that we might want to grasp onto, still off in the future there, once we get our balance a little bit, a larger anxiety is going to creep in. A realization that even though we have come back together, we're really entering into an era of rebuilding for ourselves. Rebuilding our community connections, rebuilding and recreating how we do things here, rebuilding how we are a church in a brave new world, in a brand new time that we are entering into now. We are rebuilding community, and that is a daunting task. Everything around us may look and feel a little different, even with the familiarity of patterns and rhythms. And questions start to arise as we think about that rebuilding. Who are we exactly now in the face of all that has changed in these times? And who are we meant to be after all this, both here amongst ourselves, and who are we meant to be in relationship to the other communities that we touch? There is a lot of unknown that we are entering into, even as we come back into the familiar and the joyous. And that unknown will rely on us to build new patterns, new connections, new rhythms, new ways of doing and being. And that is a big ask. And it's a little frightening. The dreaded unknown. All of these experiences I'm describing here, the first day jitters, the coming back into church for the first time and trying to find our balance again, the big questions that arise about who are we becoming even as we grow familiar again, and what are we building now together, all of those are liminal spaces. There's that word again. I talked a whole bunch at length earlier in the year about meeting the challenges of the unknown, about stepping into these liminal spaces, the thresholds that exist between everything that we know in the here and now and everything on the other side of the door that just is a big question mark. And it's tempting, I know, to want to pause in the liminal space, to just cling on to the things we know. But the rhythms and forces of time and of history won't let us stay still too long. They are going to push us through. And so we need some sort of plan, some sort of idea to live ourselves as we know ourselves into that unknown era. And back in that sermon, I used a phrase, and I used it again in last week's sermon. The way we start to build together is to acknowledge that everything we need is right in front of us. Everything we need to build our new future together is already in existence within us and among us, right in front of us. Now, this phrase sounds like a platitude, as I acknowledged last week. But understand that to say everything we need is right in front of us is not to profess some sort of blind faith that the universe will just provide if we reach out. That's not it. That's not a reliance on something that might not be there. But it is a statement of faith nonetheless. It is a faith in our ability to grasp the realities at hand, if we pause long enough to see them. It is a faith in our ability to recognize the gifts and talents within ourselves and within each other, to know what the tools are we have at hand. And it is a faith in our ability to remember the spark, the spirit that lives at the center of our faith, at the center of our community, and act in its best interests. Saying everything we need is right in front of us is acknowledging our capacity to know what's what in the here and now and what tools we have on hand to build a path from the here and now across the threshold into that great big question mark up ahead. And I know what you're thinking right now, because I'm thinking the same thing too, even as I talk about this process. That sounds a lot more challenging than just pushing through the first day jitters. And you're right. Because these bigger questions are not just about remembering how to do things, or not just about getting our bearings, but about building a whole new boat while we're feeling lost at sea. How does anyone do that? How do we do that? It still starts with that sense of kindness and compassion and grace that we can feel towards ourselves and towards others. And friends, we are going to need a lot of grace with one another as we move into this new era. We move beyond the kindness and grace into a period of discernment, of breaking everything we know apart and finding what we need amidst all of it. Pagan writer Anne Hill says that discernment is the ability to tell truth from fiction, to know when we have lost our center and how to find it again. And that is, yes, a tremendous challenge, because it's taking everything we know about us right now, plus all of the external information and noise that we are subjected to and barraged by sometimes every day, and sorting out the essence of who we are and what we do next. And even with all of our personal strategies we might have for sorting through all of the noise and prioritizing the information we have, sometimes, let's be honest, we lose track of the center. We lose track of our heart as a community. We forget sometimes what grounds us as a Unitarian Universalist faith committee. And sometimes, either personally or corporately, we wind up sometimes substituting somebody else's vision for the one we had for ourselves. We mistake ourselves amidst all of the noise. It takes intentionality to discern. Like mindfulness, it is something we have to do on purpose with some curiosity and compassion. We need to do it intentionally to break all of that apart. Everything we know about ourselves and everything we are being told outside of us, to get clarity about the truth of who we are, the real truth. The constant struggle between the truth and the noise is what makes this work difficult, but oh so necessary. So how do we do it? And there are all sorts of models for personal discernment out there. I, for one, engage in a monthly practice of spiritual direction, meeting with my director once a month to talk about what's going on and have some reflection back at me of what they're seeing to help me gain some clarity about how I'm thinking about things. But the more people you add into the equation, the harder and harder it gets, and so you need some more of a concrete process. One of the ones I have grown fond of over the last year comes to us from Susan Beaumont. She is a minister in the Presbyterian tradition and a church consultant. And her latest book, which came out just in time for the pandemic, is called How to Lead When You Don't Know Where You're Going. It is the perfect title for these times. And the heart of the answer to the question for Beaumont, how to lead when you don't know where you're going, is to return to the heart of things, to break off from everything and intentionally get to the heart of who you are, who the community is. And she lays out some steps for an intentional process. And I'm not saying right up ahead that we should engage in this particular. I just want to present a model to you today of how we intentionally break apart all of the noise and all that we know to get to the heart of things. First up, Beaumont says, stick to the big questions. The bigger, the better. The more conceptual, the better. Those are the things that deserve the attention of discernment and a questioning for what the heart of us tells us about ourselves. For instance, as we begin to gather again, the question isn't, should we serve coffee? That's an administrative task. The question is, how do we come back together in ways that balance the sense of welcome we value with our care for the health of the whole community? That's a big question, and one deserving of answers and some time discerning. And then once the big questions are arrived at, we begin by staying grounded in our guiding principles. We name out loud or in writing what our principles are, what our sense of ethics are up front, and commit to finding answers or plans that keep us accountable to those principles. We name a sense of what the spark at the center of our community wants us to be. And we make a commitment to live into that. So we may put a boundary on our discernment that says any solution we consider must take into consideration both the individual dignity that we uphold and what is best for the web of all things. Possibly easier said than done. And then once we have named the big questions and we have named what our guiding principles are in our discernment, then we take the nearly impossible step, I think, of shedding our own ego and our own bias from the conversation. We have to get out of our own ways in order to hear the voice of the Spirit, the calling of the spark at the center of us as itself, and not as we might want it to be. It's hard. I mean, we all have outcomes we're invested in. We all may have agendas that we want to inject into things. But the trick is to not confuse my own agenda, whatever that might be, for what the Spirit is demanding in the moment. And so again, this is a deliberate act of naming something. As we named our guiding principles, we name what our assumptions are in this moment with regards to a big question. What our desires for outcomes might be with regard to the question, what biases we might have to identify. What is it within me that needs to get out of the way for the moment, for the spark of the whole community to emerge unhindered? And then once we've got all of that out on the table, begins the listening, the deep listening. And those of you who have engaged in small group ministry with us on and off over the years will recognize that term, the deep listening. It is listening only for the sake of absorbing, of hearing. It is not listening to communicate, not listening to respond, not listening to come up with your next argument or to try to fix a problem. It is just listening to what the heart and soul of our faith has to say to us about the question at hand. Perhaps we engage in this listening time in absolute silence. Maybe we enter into meditation together. Maybe it is a time of prayer or journaling. However, we kind of get out of our own head's way to hear what's lying underneath, and then start to move towards the places where the voice of the spark has some energy, gives us some sense of solace in the midst of the unknown. Or from the other end, what ideas are arising that make us feel desolate a little bit, might make us despair, knowing that perhaps that is not the path we need to follow. And then eventually, amidst all of this deep listening, the body that is in discernment together, whether it is a chosen committee or all of us as a whole, having shed our biases and remembering who we are called to be within our principles, we can start to focus in on the ideas that speak from the heart of the community and take some time to develop those further into something we can actually do. But then, pause. Do not do right away. Do not act immediately. Take some time to reflect further on the decision that the body has come to, hopefully through a deep listening to the Spirit. And the bigger the question is, the more time of pause might be needed. But the purpose of that is to see what further insights arise, to listen deeply to the idea in connection with the Spirit, to see what the heart of the community and our own hearts are prompting within us about what we are about to do, giving us a chance to discuss any further misgivings or further opportunities or further joyfulness that might arise from the action that has been suggested. And then, and only then, do. Put it into action. Build that piece, the bridge, across the threshold. answering these big questions. Who are we now? Who are we meant to be now? What really matters? How are we supposed to be in relationship with other communities and one another? All of this is extremely hard work. But all of this is incredibly necessary work if we are to rebuild with grace and intention and purpose. And perhaps even with some joy in the face of all we have experienced these last 2 years. We are coming together soon. What we don't know is daunting, I will grant you. I'm a little overwhelmed by it. But as we come back together, as we start to answer these questions, remember, everything we need, our intelligence, our wisdom, our talent and skills, our passion, our commitment, our capacity to gain clarity and hear us as a whole. All of that is right in front of us. May it be so.
For the month of November, 100% of our weekly offering will be given to our friends at the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. The UUSC advances human rights and social justice around the world, partnering with those who confront unjust power structures and mobilizing to challenge oppressive policies. Their work is grounded in the belief that all people have inherent power and dignity. Please use the Givelify app on your mobile device to make your donation, or use the link in the service notes below. May what you give bring you joy.
Friends, may life bless us and keep us. May the light of life shine upon us and out from within us, and be gracious to us and bring us peace. For this is the day. This is the one wild and precious life we have been given. So let us all find a way to rejoice and be glad in it. Go in peace.